LightKey is a lighting program that calls itself Lighting Control Mac Style. And the truth is, it's a program that I've been watching for a few years, kind of in anticipation to see if it would turn out into something I like. Hi, I'm David Henry from LearnStageLighting.com, and in this video, we're going to take a close look at the Mac lighting program LightKey. I'm going to show you how to get started, how to use it, and what I think of it. When LightKey first came out a few years ago, I was pretty aware of it. I try to follow the market of lighting consoles pretty carefully because at the end of the day, the lighting console is your best decision that you can make when you're first starting out into finding the right piece of your lighting rig. Having a good controller is key. And truth is, I watched it, I tried it, and I wasn't overly impressed when it first came out. Fast forward a few years, and while I find that LightKey is more expensive than some other options, I really like what it's become as a lighting controller. Let's dive in, and I'm going to show you why I've decided that LightKey's pretty cool and why I want to recommend it to you.
All right, so when we first launch LightKey, the very first thing that we're going to see is this splash screen. Pretty simple. Welcome to LightKey 2, Professional DMX Lighting Control, Mac Style. You're going to see this whether you have activated it or not, if you've purchased it, or if you're using the demo version. Of course, like any lighting software, I recommend checking out the demo version before you buy. Go over there, click my link below, download the demo version, check it out. I mean, my review is going to help you decide whether it's a good program for you or whether you should use a different lighting program. It's got its pros and cons, like I mentioned before, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty good software, and so let's check it out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up a new project. I had built some previous projects, and you can open them here with Open Other Project, but I'm going to open a new one just to show you how simple it is. We'll just call it My New Show, just to keep it simple. And then it's going to walk you through the complete setup here. This is what I like about LightKey, why I think even though it's more costly than some of the other programs, and we'll go over that at the end of this review, it's so simple to get started, especially if you're like a pretty hardcore Mac person. It's very Mac-like, and it walks you through everything you need. There's no having to search and find for things, which I like. There's a few things I don't like about it, and we'll get to that here. But for example, we could connect USB, which I don't have. We could do ArtNet, we could do SACN, or we could do ESPNet. My best recommendation, if you're using an Ethernet-based controller or output, I would use SACN. I would set up your lighting network that way. I've got a video that I'll feature here that talk about what ArtNet and SACN are, so that you can understand how they work and be able to use them. So now that we've got that going, let's go ahead and set our network interface. You're going to want to use it definitely on a wired network. Technically, SACN can run wireless, but why chance your show or your church service on a wireless connection? So you could get that through Ethernet or possibly through a Thunderbolt port with an adapter. We'll click Next. And now we get to set up our fixtures. Now, this is what I really like about LightKey, and one of the things that drew me to it is that they've got a really big fixture library here, right? You can see that, okay? But if your fixture is not in this fixture library, there's a few ways that you can get it in, and I think this is super awesome, okay? You can go and you can request it from them on their website, okay? Or you can bring in an SSL2 file from Sunlight, DOSLight, MyDMX, or a DMX Freestyler profile as well. And so chances are a lot of the manufacturers and a lot of lights out there have a Sunlight or a DOSLight or a MyDMX SSL2 file. And you can bring that straight into LightKey here without doing anything. And that was a big selling point for me. Now, there's a ton in here already, so let's just go ahead. Let's just say let's do Blizzard today. I like the search bar as well. I can just search Blizzard, And then let's say I go in, just for this demo, we'll just do some moving lights perhaps. Actually, let's do some of these pixel mapping ones for fun. So just double click that. Then start at 1, short name. You can modify these if you want. I usually don't. And then the total number of lights. And so let's just do 4 of these guys. Boom. You can see there it actually addressed them all to the same info here. And so what I can do is now I can just go ahead and change that to 1 instead of 4. I messed that up at first. You can tell I've only patched LightKey a couple times, but that's all right. It's nice and simple, and it's very forgiving. And so see here, it's calling my first one B1, my second one B2. Just drag and drop. You know, this isn't new. Other programs do this, but it's simple, like a Intix D Pro, Jans Vista. They both do this, but regardless, we'll do that. And then let's go find some moving lights. Like the Stiletto Z3, I believe, is a moving light. Yep. And so they try to kind of match things up. Like here, this is called an MH, a moving head one. Really, in LightKey, I don't get caught up on using the short names much because they're not, everything's so visual once we get into programming that I find the short names don't really matter that much. And here I can patch consecutive fixtures. And so let's just do 6 of these guys. And that's it. You can switch between universes if you have multiple universes of DMX here, and you're good to go. You patch all your lights in there, you got dimmers, whatever, get it all going. Now we'll go ahead and we go to full screen now, okay? So previously it was just using a subset of my screen. I can always minimize it, of course, like any other program. Going to the top here and clicking this green guy, but I like how it takes over the whole screen. But, you know, at the same time, if you're using it alongside of other programs on your Mac, I get it. So now we're going to build our preview. And so it simply walks you through dragging the icons as they match your lights. Again, very simple. So say I grab these guys and I put them up here. You know, you can look at your stage or whatever you need to do as you go. And then you can use all these different icons here, trusses and text and pictures. You can literally bring in a picture of your stage and just, you know, different shapes. So say for example, I'm doing an overhead view. They kind of designed this as a front view, but you can do it as an overhead view as well. So say that's like my drum riser. And then I drag in, this is going to be my whole stage, okay? And say I've got those 6 moving heads along the back, and then I've got these 4 pixel bars. Maybe 2 of them are on the front, right in front of the drum riser. See how we've got some snapping action have there to help us line us up. And then we just go ahead and grab these guys, space them out real nice. See there, it's automatically, this is why LightKey is like so Mac style, because as I'm bringing this in, you see there, the green little bars are coming up and it's matching the spacing for me. It's pretty cool. So literally this one's down a little, but as you can see, it's just taking me a minute or 2 to spread these out. And now I'm just going to go ahead and recenter them. Of course, it will help me find the center point. And these guys are not centered at all. Whoop. Get that a little closer. Perfect. You can modify this later, of course, so it's not set in stone by any means. All right. Now we'll click next. I really like how they have this wizard because it walks you through everything. I think it's pretty awesome. So now we're going to create groups of fixtures, and groups are a little interesting in LightKey. This is one of the things I don't love about it. It's always that debate in lighting consoles of being simple versus having, and being easy versus having the ability to have some complexity in your programming. And so when you make a group, that group is always selected together. So for example, say I grab all my moving heads here. Oops, just grab the stage. But say I click to group. All right. So I click some different lights here. I can go ahead and use shift, of course, to control, to get multiple, and I group them. So now those are always going to be selected together. The thing I don't like is that I can't then go in and make a different group that's just half of these moving heads, I just have to select those manually. That kind of annoys me, honestly, that a group is kind of locked in and lights can only be part of one group. They can't be part of multiple like in other consoles. But again, at the end of the day, LightKey's goal is to keep things simple. So if you're not going to be programming a lot and you're not going to do a highly complex show, then I can't argue with the fact that LightKey's really simple to use, especially for non-lighting people. That does irk me, though, the way that the groups work. So I'm just going to group these two Pixelicious together and these two just to show you how that works. Now we set the light beam direction. This is gold. I really like how this works. I don't have my visualizer or any lights hooked up right now. But for anything that moves, or even things that don't move, let's do something that doesn't move first. You get to choose the way that the light beam looks, okay? So like this would be a straight on, but then I can do, forward, backward, etc. So I'm just going to leave that as straight on, but they want you to do it for every light. Pretty quick and simple. Again, like I always talk about when I'm on a Mac doing lighting, I wish I had a touch screen, and that's where I think PCs can really rule for lighting. But at the same time, if you're a Mac person, you've got a Mac, you want something simple, and easy to use, it's hard to go wrong with LightKey. And so then you could set the direction on these guys. And this is great because here, this is basically telling me, setting up, okay, which way is the light pointing by default? And it shows me exactly where it's pointing. It's sending out that DMX information. And then I'm just going to move this and say, okay, my light is actually pointing. Maybe it's actually pointing backwards. It's not. So I'm going to leave it. But then I can go through and do the rotation. And so here it shows a rotation of the light and we can reverse the direction if need be. Same with limits, okay? If the limits are not entered right in the fixture profile that you brought in, then you can go ahead and set a different range. Oops. You can actually literally go ahead and see it did it for all the lights in my group at once. You can literally go ahead, and set that range to say, hey, this does not go any further with pan. Maybe the pan here it says it's 270, but maybe I get this light out and it's actually, 220. I can modify that there. Same with tilt. I can modify the amount of tilt here. Maybe it doesn't tilt that full 135 like the profile thinks it does. Maybe it tilts less. You can set that. You can also, this is kind of a bonus, you can also then keep your lights from like hitting a backdrop. So you can literally use this. Say you don't want it to tilt backward more than 30 degrees. You can then set that tilt and it won't let you program past there. I personally like to always let my lights tilt wherever they can and limit it in my programming. But again, for simplicity's sake, maybe you're, setting this off and giving it to a volunteer. And so you really want to go ahead and keep it simple. And so you could maybe put that limit in there. Perspective wise too, it's going to show you, okay, how does the light beam relate to the way that we're viewing? So right now it tells you as you mouse over all these, hey, we're viewing this from the top. Okay, that's how I've set up my view. But if you did fixture hung, but you're viewing it from the front, hey, you can change it. Or fixture from the floor and you're viewing it from the front. So you've got a lot of different options there. We'll press done. We'll go to the next step now. And then, like it says, that's it. That's not really it. There's more to LightKey than just that. But I like how it starts. It lights up the lights for you. At this point, you can verify everything's working if you've got it hooked up. Okay? Then I can go ahead and I can start to work with my different lights. And so generally the way that LightKey works is I'm going to select lights. Again, these are grouped, so it's a little more difficult to get them individually. I can work with the group as a whole, so I don't love the way that LightKey uses groups. Maybe it's something they'll be open to changing in the future because it's really hard to select individual lights. But I can just go ahead here. You see here I'm setting the pan and tilt of all these lights. I can go ahead and lock it in if I want. Then I can go ahead, I could use fanning. So fanning is where, as you're programming, just to walk through the controls, is to where you're going to go ahead and each one of these lights is going to basically, you're going to set it up so that the angles are going to fan or it's going to offset across the lights. So I just kind of set these end units to fan opposite, and then everything in the middle, when I do a fan, you can see there it literally just sets that offset automatically. And so I can go ahead now and set up a first preset. And it's what's kind of cool is you can arrange things. And so I like to just create some presets for me. That's going to get you started and get you organized, which is really helpful. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But I'm going to go ahead now and just, go ahead. I hadn't done this yet, so I'm going to go ahead into this position, press plus. Then you can see here, it's brought everything into this preset. And so that's actually really important to note. This is not a good preset because it has the lights in blue and it has a position. When we build presets in LightKey, we really just want to use one parameter at a time. Okay, that's going to be your best bet. And the reason why, I'll walk through the whole programming flow here. The reason why I like to do that is that I really like when you go to the live mode here at the bottom and you go to start building what they call your control panel, or what other lighting consoles call cues, you build them from these presets, okay? Yeah, and that's what you want to do. So I could go ahead and grab all these Pixelicious in yellow, drag that in here and create a new button, totally customizable, totally mappable to MIDI controllers. And then I can go ahead and maybe I bring in these guys in turquoise and I add it to that scene. So now I see that I've got the turquoise, I've got the yellow. If I want to modify it later, I can just get rid of this one or get rid of that one. But I could also go ahead and say I go to this turquoise here, I could edit that preset. Maybe I modify my color, go just a little deeper, and save it. And so it's very friendly. This software is very friendly if you're used to working Mac style. It's what I like to call a lighting program for not lighting people, because if you don't have a lighting background, then it's really good to be able to just get going and program things without having to think about how lighting consoles work. Effects work through these presets as well, just to show you. Maybe I'll grab all these lights here, and then I'm just going to pop this sidebar out. No, I'm not. And then I'm going to go ahead and press my magic wand here up top for an effect. Say I want to do a color effect. Then it's going to come up at the bottom here. There's some pre-built ones. Like, let's just do fire. Who doesn't love a good fire effect, right? You can go ahead. That's actually pretty nutso. You can do positions. Maybe I do a random ballyhoo. So you can go between these different ones. Just going to add that effect now. It gives me a little warning about the pixels, but I don't care. I'm sticking with it. And so then you can just keep adding in colors. Like if I add in a blue here, you can see how it just strobes through these different colors. And then they've got some different controls that you can mess with. Sparking and cooling is kind of funky. It's very much from a non-lighting perspective. So if you haven't done lighting before, that's why I kind of recommend taking a good look at LightKey here. Then I can switch these different patterns. Maybe I didn't want the fire pattern. I always like a good rain. You can see there, it's just kind of going through the colors. I liked sparkle. And so then we'll go ahead, we'll save this as a palette. Boom. We'll call it Sparkles effect. And I like how, of course, it automatically shows you the colors that are in use on that effect. And so you see here that I could just fire presets live as well, but I can also go and save everything in my live tab. And that's how I really like to do things is, depending on what I'm lighting, stack up these presets into full queues here in my live tab, so that whether it's a church and we've got different parts of a service, or whether it's some kind of corporate show, maybe it's a theater show. Either way, you can go here in the bottom. You can build as many different live, control panel elements as possible. And when you're done, you press done, and then you're able to fire them all on and off as needed. So who's LightKey good for? Well, it's really designed for people doing live events. It's not as good for theater as it is for music and churches and people doing live events and things like that. And so I definitely wouldn't necessarily recommend it for things like theater, but it's a really good option for folks that are lighting things that are very simple. Now, like I mentioned before, one of the big cons besides this whole grouping bit, like I grouped these together and now I have to click it once for the group and then double click to select an individual fixture. And it's really difficult to select just half of them. It takes a lot of key presses. I can't just make a second group of that. That frustrates me to no end. But at the same time, it's very simple. One of the other things I don't like is, see, for example, we've got, basically 10 fixtures here. And you can see here, I've already got 4 different folders and an effect just kind of standing out in the middle of nowhere. And when I expand them all, you can see here that it gets pretty busy in this preset area. And so you can see as I go through and program a full show, say I have 10 positions, 10 colors for each light, and a number of effects, gobos, and all that stuff, you can see how I can start to run out of room, okay? Certainly you can hide and show things, but as you get to have a bigger show, like I would say as you get over 1DMX universe, it's going to get a lot slower to program in here because you're going to have to find the light that you want. You're going to have to scroll down, which I hate doing, and then drag those things into the live tab. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a simple controller that is able to control, basic lighting and do so simply and have a really short learning curve, and you're a Mac person, LightKey is really hard to beat. I'm going to say that here. So let's take a quick look at pricing, and then we'll wrap up. So pricing wise, if I pull up their website, which I've got a link to below at learnstagelighting.com/LightKey, we can see here if we go click to buy license, that there's some different options from per year for $69 to $99 to $179 to $349, depending on the number of channels you need. Now, besides this, you're also going to need output hardware of some kind, okay? So if you don't have a USB device like an NTEC USB or a ArtNet node like a Chauvet DMX-AN or an Elation E node or something similar to that, or maybe your lighting rig, maybe you've got a system like an ETC installed lighting system that would take SACN by default. So if you don't have one of these already, you're going to have to buy some kind of output hardware. And you can see the ones LightKey recommends if we go to the home page here, and they say highly compatible, bring your own interface, show supported interfaces. They're going to show you a lot of the options here of the USB ones. And then, of course, if it's ArtNet or SACN or ESP, those are the network-based DMX protocols. Anything that uses those network DMX protocols will work with LightKey, okay? Then, I mentioned MIDI controllers as well. If you do want hardware-based control, it's really simple to set up a MIDI controller as well. I'll be following up. I'll be doing some more tutorials with LightKey in the future, and I'll certainly showcase how this works. But just know if you got something lying around or you want to buy something inexpensive, you can totally do that. And I'll link to a post on MIDI control here as well.
So there you have it. LightKey's not such a bad program after all. Truth be told, I really like what they've done with it, and I like where they're going with it. I like the vision that they have, and even if I'm not the biggest Mac fan myself, I do recommend it. So, there is a link below to buy LightKey. Note, that is an affiliate link. There's other people on YouTube promoting it. Sometimes they disclose it, sometimes they don't. But all that means is that I get a small commission if you choose to buy LightKey at no additional cost to you. So it's a win-win. In other news, be sure to subscribe and click that bell to get the latest from Learn Stage Lighting here on YouTube. Then I will see you guys in the very next video here on Learn Stage Lighting. Have a great day.